Laughing Loon presents Building Ootek, Part 5. The kayak pictured here is Ootek, designed and being built by Rob Max. The building shown here is a condensed version of the more detailed information in my instruction books and how-to videos available on my website. In Part 4 of Building Ootek, we glassed the hull and removed it from the strongback. Mark both sides of the station locations in the hull because they'll be tacked back in to strip the deck. I knock out the stations with a firm wrap from a dead blow mallet. This breaks the stations free from the hot glue. Tack the stations at the shear line only back in the hull and prepare to strip the deck. Tacking the stations at the shear line only will make removing the deck much easier later. Tack the first deck strip on the shear line with hot glue. Spring clamps at the stems help shape the strip as it's tacked to the stations. The shear strip on the other side is tacked to the stations, and these two deck shear strips will be joined at the stem ends. I apply 4 full-length strips at the deck shear line on each side of the deck. Joining them at the stems in a herringbone pattern. This cardboard template is going to define the ends of an inset section of wood in the deck. Here I'm applying a small hot glue bridge underneath the deck where the tips of strips running on the deck center line will start. This small bridge keeps the tips of the strips on the same plane as the rest of the strips. I'm stripping the deck area at each stem between the shear strips with short strips because I will be cutting in the curved shape of the paper template you just saw to define an inset deck area. Now I trace the pattern and cut out the shape. I'm hot gluing little pieces of strip, creating a ledger under the curved end of this area to support the end of strips in the inset deck. I work from the deck center line out to the shear strips. The strips on the fore and aft inset decks run toward the center of the hull into what will be the cockpit opening, roughly defining that shape. This inset deck has evolved as a solution to a problem. When I buy boards for my boat, the boards are often not large enough to give me strips for the hull and to cover the full deck. So I use some full-length strips on the hull sides and then some full-length strips on the deck at the shear line. The inset deck gives me the option of using a similar but shorter board to fill in the rest of the deck, or I could use a contrasting board of another species. And now with the deck stripping finished, I'll scrape off all the hot glue beads that held strip edges together and carefully scrape away any remaining carpenter's glue. I'll rough sand using 60 grit. Wet the rough sanded deck down with a wet soaking sponge to raise the grain and get a peek at the wood color. Then sand the surface with 120 grit paper. Go over that surface with a damp sponge to reveal any remaining cut marks. And do a final sanding with 220 grit. I decided to dye the perimeter wood a darker color and leave the inset deck wood its natural color, so I'm masking off the shape of the inset deck to limit the dye's ability to bleed into the inset deck area. The concentrated aniline dye is diluted with water to the desired color. The dye allows the wood grain to show through. Stains have solids which can have a muddy look. The dye needs a few hours to dry. After that, the tape is removed and a little bit of sanding is needed to sharpen up the line between the perimeter and the inset deck. The transition from the inset deck to the perimeter deck is never quite as crisp as I would like it to be, so I solved this problem by applying an 1/8 inch wide copper tape. This gives a little added zing to the deck. And now I apply a seal coat of epoxy with slow hardener with a shop temperature of 80 degrees and dropping. After the fill coat is tack-free, I lay out my fiberglass cloth. I wet out the deck fiberglass with resin with slow hardener, and my shop temperatures are 80 degrees and dropping to ensure a transparent layup, and squeegee off excess resin for a lightweight layup. In part 6 of building Ootek, I'll finish the deck fill coats and will remove the deck and hull and sand and scrape the interior. For more information on my strip building techniques, see my shop tips pages at laughingloon.com. Full plans for the sea kayak Ootek, along with many other canoe and kayak plans, instruction books, and how-to videos are available at my website, laughingloon.com.